good to be back.
It's great to be back. Yeah.
Absolutely amazing. And topic that I want to talk about today is there are some really useful lenses to have, very useful mindsets to have. Just as an example of when you're at a party, right? You want everybody to have a good time. How do I maximize making sure that everybody comes out of this party and thinking, wow, that was the best time that I've ever had in a really long time? Very useful lens. How do I get better at health? How do I get better at something? A lot of really useful ways of looking at the world.
You could say there's a lens of physiognomy, something we haven't even talked about, just how people look. The lens of, I want to associate with people who seem to have bright, colorful, happy countenances. That lens can guide you in certain circles, in certain ways where you're going to make friends with good people and you're going to recognize certain things. That's just a lens that can be helpful to view the world through, similar to some of the other lenses we have talked about, such as, the high risk matrix, evaluating yourself and where you fit in your particular community. It's a lens. You can look through the lens and figure out something that can be helpful to you. These are all fantastic ways to look at the world.
Yeah, on the physiognomy point, right? Somebody that we know showed me a YouTube video of somebody who makes content. And then he had the video paused and then was like, all right, after you watch this clip, tell me who this reminds you of. The second that I saw the still image of the screenshot, I immediately said exactly who the person was. And then when the clip played, that person spoke exactly like the person that was being talked about. And that's just going into the physiognomy lens a little bit, in that the way that you carry your face, the way that you look, is a direct reflection of who you are as a person. So the exact ways that the person that we know explains things is the exact way that that person explained things, and just immediately saw it through that look.
That's how you can know that I actually very much have a lot in common with Kermit the Frog. It just comes out in the way that I express myself. So, obviously it's a physiognomy thing, but more seriously, physiognomy is just super useful in that aspect of, what people look like that are really good people in your life. And when you see those people with similar faces out and about, you can kind of just instinctively know, oh, I should talk to that person.
Yes. And so in the same way that there are really good lenses, for example, physiognomy, there's also very harmful lenses that can be absolutely detrimental for you to carry. An example is the inverse of physiognomy, to where you say, don't judge a book by its cover, or the people that you see that give you 10 million red flags that you're like, I cannot trust this person. I should not be around this person. Oh, let me put my guard down and just treat them like anybody else, and then be an innocent little dove who, it's like, there's no way for me to consider them to be a bad person until they actually do something bad to me. That's obviously going to be harmful, because even if it's not a 100% hit rate, you are not going to be damaged by people if you take the lens of 98% of people who look like this are going to be somebody who betrays me. So I'm never going to tell them a secret.
Right.
Whereas if you're just going to innocently say, oh, this person may look like this person may look like a eagle physiognomy or something, I shouldn't trust them, but I'm going to anyway. Then you're going to consistently get betrayed over and over and over again. This just goes into, overall, there's so many lenses and so many mindsets that people take that are just wholly detrimental to their life in pretty much every fabric. And when you poke at them even a little bit, the justifications for having them just fall apart entirely.
Another great example of a lens or a mindset that's really harmful is the concept that I am who I am, and who I am needs to be respected by my friends. Your friends are trying to help you oftentimes, and so if there's criticism leveled towards you, a lot of the current philosophy is to this lens of, well, you just got to be your own person, and if other people don't like you, that's their problem. And like all things, there's some truth to that, but the majority of the time, this is just used as a way to not move forward, to not improve as an individual when your friends are bringing up maybe legitimate concerns. But what a lot of these bad lenses kind of have in common is that they're very generally pushed onto you by not just media, but by a lot of the people around you can kind of goad you into thinking, hey, well, you got to consider this thing.
Mhm.
You got to consider the 1%, or you got to consider this super outlandish concept and include that in all of your other estimations.
Yeah, and so one of the biggest topics that kind of spurred on talking about this as a discussion point for us is just the idea of curtailing your thoughts to the idea of the ever-present normie, the ever-present person that doesn't actually even exist and is also just not in the room, of curtailing your thoughts to appeal to somebody who isn't even there. When everybody in your circle that you're talking to, they all understand certain concepts, there's no reason to caveat what you're saying with every single little caveat as if there is just the, random high school teacher that you were with who's listening into the conversation.
Yeah, Big Brother's always listening and making sure you're saying the right thing. Like we said in episode 1, where we're talking about bringing people up to speed, it doesn't make sense to talk about all the concepts we're going to talk about as though someone has not watched episode 1 and they might be tuning in just now. So we need to curtail anything we're saying and police it to bring anyone up to speed who hasn't watched all the previous episodes. That's an outlandish kind of thought, and it wouldn't make sense here. And it doesn't make sense in other situations as well, like you're talking about, where if you're in a group of people, you're all on the same level. And someone may say, oh, but that thought, wouldn't be acceptable to someone who's, a normie or something. But why should you be necessarily concerned about that if they're not even there? They don't even exist, if you will.
Yeah, this is a big thing of would be a lot of people that I would just not tell that I am doing a podcast, because those are people that I have relationships with, and this podcast is not for them. And if I was to introduce them into the idea of this podcast is for the people that it is for, which is you specifically, and then also having them in the room, then I would have to be saying things significantly different than the way that I actually am. So I would just never give that to them unless they find it out through their own sort of way. In that sense, whenever you have a particular person in your group, that will naturally change the group dynamics. When there's a whole bunch of guys in a social situation, there's, the whole proverbial locker room talk, to where people are just saying things that are just wildly inappropriate for what is considered polite society or polite company. And that's just the reality of how that particular group dynamic works. And then you'll also find people who, even when they're in that group dynamic, okay, these are all men that we can trust, that will not spill the beans on anything you might say that's a little bit too provocative, a little bit too edgy. And then they'll try to police it as if there are, your random grandma or girlfriend or sister there at that conversation, even though they're not.
One of the more, I would say, sinister aspects of this is even worse than kind of what you're describing, which is where, there's different appropriate conversations for different points, but people will find themselves, and they will also find themselves not just policing themselves, but policing other people in kind of specific ways. One concept is like talking about alcohol. If we're having a discussion about alcohol, kind of for us, the foregone conclusion is that no one has a problem with alcohol. Let's discuss the pros and cons. Is there a use for this? Is there not? And so anytime we may be saying, oh, alcohol could help you with this thing or that thing, the most studied benefits are with red wine, right? So tons of people, even in the normie space, will say red wine is good.
Yeah, and every single piece of data shows that the best amount of alcohol to drink is not zero in terms of health benefits.
And so there's always the potential of someone saying, well, you can't say that because there are people who are alcoholics who struggle with this. So they're policing the truth in this sense. I can't say that the optimal amount of alcohol is not zero because there may be someone out there who struggles with alcohol. Of course, if I knew that person was there, I might give a specific address to that person about the thing. But when the person doesn't exist or the person isn't present in the conversation, I'm not going to not say a truth on the off chance that some person who is not there, maybe doesn't even exist, would hear it. And that's where it becomes dangerous, because people will just not say anything, because the reality is that Alcohol's not the only thing you can abuse. You can abuse lots of different things. And so if you're going to talk about any subject and you're going to try and go into the minutia of what's beneficial and what's not, it may fall into the grounds of taboo, according to some people, because they're going to say, well, you can't think that because someone might hear you thinking that, and that person may be hurt by what you're thinking.
Yeah, and this goes into a greater societal trend, is the, whether it's true or not, the idea that, you know, Gen Z isn't drinking alcohol anymore. And that goes into the idea that people pretty much always feel like they're being recorded, that everything that they do, everything that they say in public is going to be viewed by everybody. And that means that you always have to curtail your behavior and thoughts to as if, you know, your boss is going to watch every single thing that you do at this random party. So in that sense, it's putting in this situation to where, oh, people are not drinking alcohol, even if they are going to parties, because they don't want to do something that's, you know, stupid. Whereas in 30 years ago or something, before the idea of cell phones or something, people would be much more willing to do stupid things because everything is only there for the audience that is actually there. In the past, there wasn't this idea that every single thought that you have will be broadcast to everybody, everywhere, always. Now people have that idea and they apply this to places where it is not actually the case, but because it becomes their default mindset of understanding.
Yeah. In that regard, too, we talked about this in episode 1 and a couple of the early episodes. Everything's fake, right? So when you're watching shorts or reels, there's always this kind of camera at a party recording someone doing some dumb thing. And that is what has kind of brought about the assumption that Big Brother is always watching. We live in an age where we're beginning to lose our concept of point of camera. We talked about this too. So many of these reels or short form videos where it's allegedly candid is always fake. And part of that is it's so difficult to get good camera work. It's so difficult to capture the audio. It's so difficult to capture the lighting and what's actually going on. When I've tried to capture candid video, it's horrible. Now, granted, I'm not the best at this. But the point is these guys have crews that go around and do this. And the reason I'm bringing this up is just because that is part of a manufactured mindset. They want you to feel that someone is always recording you and watching you. And in some cases, it's true. There are some places where this is true. People are always recording and they can get stuff. Obviously, I live in a rural town. So it doesn't happen. New information. It doesn't really happen where I'm at. I didn't grow up with this. I didn't grow up with the concept of everyone watching you because there's not even cell phone signal in most of the places I am. And I've never heard of someone recording inside like a bar or somewhere where maybe embarrassing things might take place. That's all super taboo where I am. But in other places, people do these things. And so there is a sense of everyone's watching. And that is intentional. And you see that reflected, as you said, down to the minutia of even your thoughts and even just your private conversation with your friends. Maybe someone's going to post something on social media about this.
Yeah, because you also, one of the most popular like normie slop style of shorts is, you know, somebody just coming up to you on the street and asking questions. They might not even have like a mic on and making it obvious that, oh, hey, this is an interview. They're just walking up to you and then just having some random like joke or thing that they're saying to you to elicit some type of reaction. And so in that, when that's, you know, what a lot of the media that people consume is, then they're going to take it for default granted of just, you know, this person is talking to me. Oh, this cute girl is talking to me. And, you know, like, oh, maybe like trying to flirt with me. Oh, like, where's the camera? Or like, oh, is this a fed or something?
Yeah.
So
I would like to see a show of hands. Everyone hold your hand. If you've ever been approached on the street by someone who was doing like a YouTube video. I've never seen this happen, and it's never happened to me.
Never seen it happen before.
Yeah, it's not just not. I've never seen it happen. That doesn't mean that I think it doesn't ever happen. But I'm just wondering, you know, especially people who live in more metro areas, is this something you actually see? Because I have to wonder if this is happening at all, even. And maybe I'm all wet on that. But the amount that is faked, that we know is faked, if some of it's faked, it's all fake, right? Like, and so you just have to wonder about these kinds of things. Like, it's just there to manufacture the mindset.
Yeah, and so more dialing into the idea of everybody feels like they need to talk about things as if everybody is watching.
Mm-hmm.
It's when you're bringing up the idea of, oh, here's maybe something else that you should add to your stack that is hard, that is difficult in terms of health, fitness, general life philosophy of something that is difficult but has value and has worth. People will always kind of default to the idea of, oh, but what if people, what this might be too much for somebody, to where, you know, they might just do you know, a strongman or a strong lift 5x5 routine or something like that. They'll do the most basic things, but then if you say that it's pretty important to do this other thing, then all of a sudden, oh, if they're told all of these things, then they'll do nothing. If those people existed, and if I was talking to those people, then I would say those things. But when I'm talking to a different group, that's not something that should be considered. These things should be understood that this is just trying to squeeze all of the juice out of the lemon and just seeing, you know, here is one little extra thing that can be added that is of value. And even though there are some people that might take this the wrong way, they're not here. So why would I focus on them?
Yeah, I think when you are trying to optimize, the difficulty in optimization increases the more optimized you get, the more percent of optimization. And so people kind of have this idea that, well, if you go too far in the optimization, then it's not friendly to the beginner. That may be true, but are you talking to the beginner? And is the beginner even able to parse that information? Is it something that's going to be relevant to them? You actually have some experience with this just in the health front, in some of the guys that we work with trying to improve their health, where you can give them a lot of advice and recognize they're not going to be able to parse all of it. So I've seen you tailor your talk to a specific person for a specific thing that needs to be dealt with, and starting with the small steps and building complexity and optimization as you go through. As a personal trainer, you're very adept at this. But when we are talking in an open space such as this, can't control necessarily who hears it. We shouldn't curtail or police the thoughts in terms of complexity or optimization, because someone who's a beginner might tune into this and go, oh, well, I just watched a Mike Israetel video and I was getting ready to like sign up for the gym and do this thing. But then I stumbled across this guy, Yasukeh, and he said that, well, just a 5x5, you know, strongman lift is not optimal. So now I'm not going to the gym at all.
Yeah.
That person was never going to go to the gym if they were going to watch one video on someone talking about hyper optimization and then they're just like, oh, it's over.
Yeah.
So in that way, the person doesn't exist in this specific scenario.
Yeah, because, you know, if somebody has an issue with alcohol, it's their responsibility to hear some, if their idea of why they never had alcohol is that, oh, it hinges on the belief that there's absolutely no health benefits whatsoever and it's a pure downside. And then if I'm talking about, oh, maybe there are some health benefits to having a small amount of alcohol, or having alcohol during the day so that you're not going to sleep with it in your system, because that's where the overwhelming majority of negatives in alcohol comes from, is it disrupting your sleep. Giving lines of argumentation to that, if that person is only going to have their, you know, no alcohol journey just because they have this one particular belief, it's not my responsibility to curtail my information and what I'm saying to ultimately people that are somewhat on the same wavelength as me. They're not people who have a dangerous relationship with alcohol. They're people who, you know, maybe could consider having, you know, a drink at 1 p.m. on a Saturday and then just chill with that. And that's perfectly fine. It's so, if you curtail your speech to all of the people that will have issues with every single thing, then you're never going to be able to talk about anything at all. And so you just have to come to the understanding that there are some people that might hear your thing that might get the wrong idea. And it's not your responsibility to control for that. because especially when it is in a space to where you can't control who exactly is hearing what information. When it's a one-on-one conversation or a physical conversation in a group, no live streaming, no podcasting, no external audience that might be there, might not be there. People will take the mindset of, even in that group, as if there is a potential super alcoholic there when there's just not.
You see this on websites like x.com as well, where people will just kind of be throwing their thoughts out, which is how a lot of people use that website.
Mm-hmm.
And then other people will attack them, like, how could you say this? What if such and such heard that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm just, putting thoughts out there, which is kind of on you for putting your thoughts on the internet to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
But by and large, this is something that permeates society on all these different levels, that people want to control all these different things. And we even said, at the beginning of this series, don't get one shot by information.
Mm-hmm.
If you get one shot by the information that day drinking a very small amount is actually beneficial to your health, I don't mean to belittle people, but that's rough. If that's the information that just causes you to go into a drunken rage, it's not laughable, but it's definitely on the level where I can't conceive of that person getting any value out of anything that I have to say. If just saying one little thing is going to totally spiral their life out of control. But also it is the responsibility of the viewer and the listener to use the information correctly and to not let it destroy their lives, not to listen to one thing and then go, okay, now for the next 6 months, like that one thing that I heard is the most recent whatever in my arsenal, and that's all I'm going to talk about, or let that dominate my life. Talking about that in the beginning is because you can hear so many different opinions, and they can be so different, and they can be so influential, and you can get a lot of different information from different sources. If you let all of them control your personality, especially in now the information age, you will never have any thoughts of your own. You're just letting other people live kind of rent-free in your head.
Yeah, so it's in that sense on like a two-pronged issue. One is that you can't have this idea that there is this proverbial normie, or this idea of the person who would be worst adept at taking this piece of information. Oh, that person is magically here, even though they're not actually in the room. In the same way that you can't take that, you should not ever take that for your individual personalized conversations that are outside of internet spaces. And that's a pretty clear-cut, uncontroversial thing to say, in that these spaces that are closed off should be pretty obvious why. And then even on the level to where you are talking publicly in areas to where you might not be able to control every single person that views this, even then, you still shouldn't be fully curtailing your thoughts to the idea that everybody is going to see this. Because at that point, you get to a point to where you can't actually say anything. And it makes it just to where it's super limiting for the purposes of you trying to take the self-responsibility away from somebody else. And it generally just goes into a very modernist mindset of the idea that people have no self-responsibility whatsoever, which kind of goes into something of like last episode is I kind of ping pong flip flop between giving people ultimate agency for like obesity or something, and then giving them absolutely no agency whatsoever.
Right.
It's a contradiction. I don't care. It's okay. I'm okay with that.
You have a very developed amygdala that enables you to hold both views at the same time.
Yes. So in that sense, it's putting yourself in a position to where you just have to be okay with saying things. It's ultimately about what can you do to give the maximal value for the type of people that you're trying to speak to. You're going to have a general audience in a particular sphere, and you can't major in the minors. You can't look at, oh, there might be somebody here who is like that, so I'm not going to say anything. If I'm talking about, intersex dynamics, and it's in a group that, is ostensibly, 99%, 100% male group, it would not be beneficial for me to curtail my thoughts of the idea that, oh, hey, there might be a woman here. Because, obviously, I'm going to talk to women differently than I'm going to talk to men. And if you're not doing that, are you just saying that they're the exact same? Which is
slippery
also
slope.
It's also another sort of poisonous mindset is just, tabula rasa, blank slate theory.
Yeah.
Thinking that everybody is the exact same and you should be talking to everybody in the exact same way. It's just sort of every single aspect of living, of being, just shows how blatantly false this idea is. Even when people take the idea and they understand that it's not true in one angle or another, these sort of intro to based dumb courses, early, 2016 Jordan Peterson.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the points that he would bring up is the idea of gender egalitarianism as an example. In the most gender egalitarian societies, which is, Nordic, Scandinavian countries, where they're putting in the most effort to give people as many opportunities as possible, are actually the places that have the largest gender divide in terms of jobs that are taken. So traditionally female-led jobs like, a kindergarten teacher or a nurse, these societies that are the most egalitarian have the highest differences, whereas the societies that are considered less egalitarian will have, more men in traditionally women roles and more women in traditionally men roles. And that's just the most basic idea, that people can adopt that and then never adopt any of the other conclusions or any of the other ideas. And they'll still default to the idea that everybody is exactly the same and we should treat everybody exactly the same, which is also another one of those poisonous enlightenment mindsets that people just kind of take for granted and never actually critically look at. It's not only a poisonous mindset in and of itself, but it's also under the idea that if I say anything that goes against this, it might just be seen by anybody.
I think there's another aspect to that egalitarianism and to the idea of adaptability. Humans are very adaptable. And what I mean by that is that we adapt to different social circles and social settings. Like you talk about talking to primarily men, you're going to have different things to say than you would to a primarily woman group. Obviously, ideally, just not in a situation where addressing primarily women. That seems like not something I don't understand that.
In what world would that become a situation?
Yeah, I don't know why that would ever be appropriate for me. Unless I guess I have a ton of daughters.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm talking to a bunch of daughters. Different, right? But then there's also an aspect to this, which we talked about or kind of teased earlier in the series, which is social and cultural screening in terms of sometimes it's appropriate to say something early on to see the reaction of various people so that you can screen for which people you do want to have in your inner circle and which people you recognize may actually be harmful or damaging. Talked about betrayal earlier. If you're totally open with someone who's just obviously going to just betray you, you're really asking to get hurt. And so sometimes it can be helpful to see where other people's mind frames are by dropping something that is ever so slightly off color or something that could be interpreted differently. I don't know. We're going to get canceled off YouTube if I tell the story about you and the Middle Eastern country with the supporter there at camp.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, that story. Could bring it up.
Okay.
Don't mention the country's name.
So there's a guy who supports a particular country that is influential in our country, and he's talking to Yasukeh and really just kind of like proselytizing the greatness.
You got to go to this place.
You got to experience this, and these people are just super awesome. And he just brings up, he's like, yeah, it's a war-torn area, and I have a lot of heartfelt, sympathy for like the Christians and the messianic individuals in those areas. Like, I really feel for those people. And you can see the guy just kind of like, and so that's like kind of like slightly off color, and his reaction is all telling. He was upset that you didn't say the people group that he wanted, even though he claims to be one of these other people group you are sympathizing with. It's very evident that this guy is just a betrayer in that sense. Like, he's not sticking up for Christianity. He's not a defender of the faith, and you can tell that by just the tiniest off color comment.
Yeah, because it's also saying it very strategically in a way to where I have perfect, plausible deniability in that sense, to where it's off color enough that it can be useful as a sorting tool but it's not so off color that, I might have some other people randomly walking up to me an hour later being like, oh, hey, what are you saying?
Yeah, and that's another aspect of that is you don't want to take kind of late stage Jordan Petersonism. We're just trying to say the most offensive things possible to enrage people and then hit them with a word salad until they leave you alone. You want to be welcoming to people and helpful to explaining your positions to people. But if you can kind of limit your social circles in a certain way with a certain type of screening where you're able to kind of parse these concepts out and see how people react to them, you can much better adapt to those people. And those people may be people that you want in and maybe people you want out. And I'm not talking about, hyper controlling social circle. I'm simply talking about the natural process that is overcome by the harmful lenses of don't say this thing because some person may be there. So now you have to think this thing in your head for years and years and years and never ever say it and slowly attract people who are offended by that. Even though they're not the person. They're not the person that exists, but they are the person that's offended by the thing you're saying that would offend someone who's not even real. And they infect your social circle and now you're trapped and you actually can't escape this now. You just surrounded yourself by people who won't let you talk.
Yeah, and it can also even be in a situation to where you're in a social circle and you are in a social circle with people that you don't have any kind of common ground with. And you're just kind of biting your tongue and not saying anything that would be considered off color here. And there might also be somebody else in that group that is doing the exact same thing. But because neither of you guys are willing to sort of break the orthodoxy even 1%, then you guys wouldn't even know that, like, oh, hey, in this group, there's actually like 3 people that I actually would really vibe with. But because we're in a situation where we're all holding our tongue, we can't go into a situation of like, yeah, these things are kind of silly that, this other part of the group, like, they're really into these things, but we're just here for, the literal focus of the actual thing that we're into.
This is something that for me, I haven't had to use nearly as much, a generational family kind of raised inside my own social circles. And I've been out in the world. I've seen a lot of things, but I've never had to realistically, foundationally build up my own social network in terms of, the people around me. It's kind of just handed to me. And then I'm, moderating and helping other people come in and understand what's expected. But when I'm with you and we go to these different camps or various events we're going to, I make myself sound like kind of a social, like I don't know how to socialize or something. That's not the case. The point is simply that you're far more adept at this. And watching you do that, it's like, I'll be there observing and making the conclusion that there's probably just nothing here. These group of people aren't my people. And you'll say something that I'm kind of like, oh, I wouldn't maybe have said that. And then a couple of people will kind of be like, oh, hey, that guy, he said the off-color thing. And the next thing you know, we have this kind of separate group where these people are seeking out, you, and then by extension me. It's like, oh yeah, there are people that are there who are not brave enough to speak up because they have been trapped, whether by their own doing or because they just don't know how to defeat these mindsets. They're sitting there going, well, I think this thing, I don't dare say it. And it's liberating for them, having seen this firsthand, it's liberating for them to be able to go like, hey, you're the guy that believes that thing, right?
Yeah,
Don't you believe that thing? And then they're just like, oh, let me unload and let me like suddenly trauma bond with you.
Yeah, this is exactly the biggest thing is that so many people are so afraid of this and they never actually have this outlet for this, which you can be that guy and you can be the person to finally give them permission to talk about this thing.
Yeah.
Because it's also just important to generally be seen as somebody who's somebody worth respecting, which is, don't dress in, pajama pants. Just generally take care of your physical.
Zoomers are cooked with the pajama pants, okay?
Type shit. So in that sense, if you look like somebody who's generally having things together, and then you give people permission to like offload, you are giving yourself infinite social points of giving people something that they've never been able to get elsewhere. And then you're going to be able to develop really deep, meaningful connections with the people that are most like you and the most important people that you could be developing connections with. It's in the same idea of you really just always should be the person who's reaching out to other people of like, hey, do you want to go out? Do you want to do this event? Yeah. Call people, talk to people, be that guy who's actually like making things happen. Because a lot of people want things to happen, and very few people actually want to make things happen. So if you can be that guy, you will gain so much social value, both in terms of, just vague, getting people to like you, but then also in terms of just building valuable connections that help you and give you sort of a platform to build off of.
If you are like most of the 17-year-olds that are watching this, you may at some point have needed to rebrand yourself. This is something that a lot of people go through. Your childhood is on display for everyone around you. And when you're a kid, especially a young man, you go through a lot of different phases, some of which are awkward, some are annoying. And people get this expectation and understanding of you. And that can only be broken by you doing something that's quite different, out of character, and very competent. So in that as well, a lot of guys get to the ripe old age of 17 or 18. And they're just kind of like, I've always been this kind of person and no one really respects me. How do I start getting people around me to respect me? And I'm just sounding like a boomer. First thing, stop wearing pajama pants. But actually, what we're talking about here, giving other people the liberty to speak and being willing to present yourself well, being willing to be a respectable individual. And then, like you say, it's not even necessarily a leadership thing. All you have to do is text people. Hey, I'm having this thing. Do you want to come out? And that is exactly how these relationships get built. I know that sounds really basic, but it's true. And especially in this day and age where most people are doing a lot of their socializing online, it can really pay to actually invite people out to do stuff. Even if it's just go clean up a park or let's go, like doesn't have to be volunteer work necessarily, but that's a really good low cost thing where it's like, it doesn't cost anyone to show up. And if they're fun people, it's going to be a fun event regardless. Or, let's go fly a kite in the park or something.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be something that's, hey, let's go out to eat. And, we want to go out to eat in a place that's like healthy enough, which is going to be more expensive. It doesn't have to be anything that actually costs anything.
And you also don't have to go bowling because then someone's going to lose. And that's going to be me. And then I'm just going to be pissed.
Yep. And before, get some ideas about like, Yasukeh is wearing pajama pants. Nah, these are just, 100% linen pants.
What are those? Sorry.
They are a little bit big, but 100% linen, which is the value of linen. And sometimes I might need to wear pants that are for fat women.
We don't normally do this, but I'm going to expose you.
Okay.
So we go shopping often, thrift stores. And finding linen clothing is difficult. It is. I don't. If you've ever shopped for linen, it's so hard. And the majority of the clothing that is linen is made for women. And so when you're shopping for linen clothes that are made for women that are you're trying to fit for a man, you're often in what we might call the big girl section.
Yep.
And Yasukeh has a habit of very loudly going into the big girl section and going, these are fat women pants, aren't they? And I don't get secondhand embarrassment, but I'm always just like, and it's so unintentional. No one's ever made a comment so far, but it's just the funniest thing.
This also goes into my favorite thing to say to women that I'm not interested in.
About them more than to them.
About them, It's she's nice. It's just the most, it's the best thing that I can say.
Me being a 30-year-old and him being 17, I'm constantly trying to bring him into the 30-year-old club. And so I'm always, sometimes not in the nicest way, being like, you should look at this particular woman or you should talk to this one. And if it's not quite up to his standards, the response is always, she's nice.
Yeah. For the podcast listeners, we can get them up to speed on that particular term. Is that...
I forgot.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because they don't know this. Is that the delineation between 17 and 30 is that if you are an unmarried, single guy, no kids, you are 17.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter if you're, but I'm 28. You're not 28. You are 17.
Yeah.
And you will continue to be 17 until you have a wife and children. So, fortunately, I'm 17.
Yeah. Then you graduate to being 30. And realistically, it's just a mindset change.
Yep. Doesn't matter if you're 16.
Yeah.
You're 30.
You're 30. It is one of those pretty obvious things when you think about it. Just the way you view the world when you are single is different. It doesn't always have to be so radical, and it's not meant to be derogatory. It's simply an understanding that your mindset cannot be evolved to the point of someone who's married and has kids, because you can't have experienced that. Last episode, we talked about health. We talked about your ability to empathize and understand people who are just at the bottom in terms of energy. They can't do anything. Well, you wouldn't understand what it's like to be married with kids unless you're married with kids. And that's not like, you can't talk to me or tell me anything. It's just the truth of how things work.
Yeah.
And you can learn about it, and you should. Everyone should be studying to be married. Every man should be studying for that, great challenge of marriage and children. Challenge and duty. It's wonderful. The point is just that don't want people to think that I'm ragging on them, saying they're 17. This is clear to the Yasukeh people. I just forgot that other people are going to watch.
Yeah, this just isn't actually a commonly known thing in any circle except for the Yasukeh.
Yeah. I can't remember if you or I started that.
I'll look into this.
Yeah. You have to. The record keeper will check.
And this all really just goes back into the idea that there are certain mindsets, certain lenses that are useful and certain lenses that are not. The whole 17-30 dynamic is ultimately just about thinking about life in terms of stages that you are at that have very clear and objective metrics. Like there is a big difference. This is most easily understood when it comes to women, in that, there is the girl that is growing up. There is a girl that is, of age, looking for a husband. Then when she becomes a mother, it's just entire dramatic personality shift. Something that you see so often of the big difference that it comes from being a single woman to a mother, just completely radically changed. And then a completely different person once, all of the kids are of age and you are just in a very strict, different stages of life.
It's important to view this and embrace the lens in the sense that it's okay to move through life in different areas. A lot of guys will get caught up in the desire to be in the next stage of life. And the reality is each stage has its own values and its own objectives. So kind of point of value in the I'm 17 mindset is you should be training like you're a 17-year-old. You should be looking at your world as, okay, I'm a 17-year-old. I, want to get married. What are the things I should be working on? That's one of the ways that's a really helpful mindset for men. And the same for women. It's like before you have children is the time to do a lot of different things, to build a lot of different skills. Not to brag, but my wife spent a lot of her youth doing super useful things and building a skill set so that now that she is married, she can utilize those things. Had no outlet for it before, but was training them nonetheless. And that's a really helpful thing when you just look at the time period of the life that you're in and go, okay, here's what I should be working on. Instead of, people get caught up in, I got to figure out everything there is to know about like being married. Well, I'm not married. Well, you should learn some things, but you have all this time, you could be working on a bunch of other things instead.
Yeah, and this also just goes into useful versus not useful beliefs. The not useful belief is just the general idea of not really having structure or demand or responsibilities in your life, to where when you are at this stage, there is things that people demand of you and responsibilities that you have to carry for others. Whereas in the more structured mindset of when I'm at this stage of my life, these are things that I can and can't do. I can't go to Washington for a random week because I don't want to deal with my family right now. That's something that I can't do.
Yes. Kind of specific.
Kind of specific.
Not to me, in case anyone was wondering. But yes. No, that's definitely one of those aspects where when you're a single guy, there's lots of things you can do. Whether they're wise or not is kind of beside the point. The point is you have the ability to do them. And then when you're married, you don't. But there's other things that you can enjoy. Always being caught up in the idea of, I wish I was in another stage of life is setting yourself up for absolute misery. Know ton of guys who, when they were single, when I knew them when they were single, all they talked about was like, oh, I just can't wait to like get married, which it's fine to want to get married. But they were just thinking about, oh, when I get married, I'm going to have this. Oh, when I get married, I'm going to have this kind of household. When I get married, it's going to be like this. It's going to be like that. They get married, and now they're just like, I kind of like when I was single. Because they spent so much time thinking about what it was going to be like when they were married. When they got there, it was something different. And they're just kind of like, oh, well, this isn't what I was envisioning because I spent all my time daydreaming about what my world would be like.
Yeah, as opposed to actually building up the steps to make that specific thing a reality. Because you can take the things that you want, and then instead of just kind of daydreaming about it, you could think about it in the sense of, all right, what are the specific things that I can actively do right now into making that a reality? You know, if I want to be somebody who can run around with my kids when they're like 10 or something, then you're going to have to be at a certain level of physical fitness. And, you know, you're going to have to start that right now. And that's obviously like a myopic 17-year-old thing to talk about as an example of what you would think about.
I have like a really specific kind of anecdote on this one. And that was, I was talking to, back when I was 17, I was talking to a 30-year-old. And I was saying, I admired his family, how they were put together. You know, I liked that they listened to a lot of classical music. And he was like, well, do you want your family to listen to classical music? And I was like, yeah, you know, I think I'd like that. Like when I get married, for my family to be that way. And he goes, so what do you listen to now? And I was like, alternative rock. And he was like, what do you think's going to happen? And for me, and this is one of those things, I almost got one shot by that idea. I was like, wait, I have to change now? And this is just like I said, the myopic 17-year-old, like, oh. And I did. I changed it. You know, started cultivating a whole other taste of music because I realized if this is the music I like now, what magical thing is going to change to where suddenly my house is filled with a different kind of music that I had no hand in bringing about? No, you have to be hands-on for the decisions you want and make those changes happen. So if you're the kind of guy that's like, I just, you know, play video games all day. When I get married, I don't want my kids to play video games all day. Like,
I don't want any TVs or screens in the house.
Like that's not boding well if you're not doing that. And there's a bunch of other stuff that, you know, goes with that. It's like, oh, I want my parents don't communicate very well. I hear this a lot from people of millennials or maybe Zoomers. I want to have great communication with my wife. And then you don't work on those skills. That is a skill set. You got to work on that skill and actually working on that with your own parents who, if you think they're bad at communication, that's just upping the bar. Try to communicate with them even better. Take it on yourself to communicate with them. And you'll find out just how difficult it is. Instead of just sitting there like, I'm going to live life through texting or whatever.
And so, this just ultimately just very good ideas, very bad ideas. And in the same way that there is your diet, and one of the biggest things when you gave the question of, yo, Yasukeh, what do you do with like your diet and shopping? And the biggest thing that I talked about is just removing negative things. Like, don't have an egregious amount of seed oils. Don't have an egregious amount of xanthan gum, fortified, you know, iron, ferritin or something. Just all these random, just horrible chemicals in your food for no reason. In the same way of that, there are positive ideals and there are negative ideals. And people don't take the same idea of really trying to curtail and analyze which of these thought processes are actually useful for where I want to go in life and which of these are not. In the same way that if you're somebody who wants to have classical music be what your family listens to, and then you don't, that's something that, all right, you can just look at that and be like, okay, this is something that's just obviously not going to be the case. If you have some fundamental core idea of, oh, I want to have great relationships with people that are like-minded, like me, and I'm not really a normie, and so there are very few people like me, and I'm going to act exactly like a normie in every social situation, then you're never going to find those people. So then that's a situation to where you need to analyze, like, is this a thought that's actually useful for me? Is it useful for me to not piss off the normie that doesn't exist? And in exchange for that, I never make relationships with people that would actually be valuable for me. Is that something that's actually valuable? That's what you need to look at and consider when in the same way that you don't have the xanthan gum, you don't want to have these other negative, horrible ideas that are exactly contradictory to where you want to take your life.
And as you do that, as you purify the diet of your mind, you're going to also encourage people around you. We already talked about the specific mode of encouragement of freeing other people, but there are people who will sit there and go, oh yeah, don't say that thing because imaginary person might hear it. And when you confront them on that ideal, you may be surprised to find you actually can make the Besudo guys out of normies. Mm-hmm. This is something that can happen when you give people agency to think and you expose the thought process. You say, well, that's a particular thought process, rather than simply saying, you know, oh, you're blah, 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 this or that.
Yeah, people have so much of a big idea that the normie is static. But even the idea of what is a normie has changed so much, so dramatically over time, to where, like, within this conception, biggest idea that I think about is in 2008, not too long ago, according to, you know, the statistics, what the statistics that are given by sources that, you know, I don't trust, but it's something that is convenient to my thought, so I'm going to still believe it anyway. 55% of registered Democrats polled were against the legalization of gay marriage. And now you won't see a single elected politician on any side that is trying to challenge that idea. And so in that sense, the idea of what, not looking at that specific example, but just the idea of how dramatic of a shift that is in less than 2 decades, to where the idea of what is considered like the normie changed so far from what it was then to what it is now. There's no reason why that can't happen to somebody coming closer to your ideals.
Yeah, this is one of those things where we talk about the Overton window in the more colloquial sense. This is the same thing where in 2008, you had lots of people who would side with you on certain issues, such as gay marriage. And now you just can't even find that. That's a negative spin on the Overton window. Mm-hmm. Oh, things got, in my estimation, worse, right? Mm-hmm. But there are other things where it flips the other way. There's always outliers, but then just the normie's mindset is changed too in other directions. Overall trust in media has fallen off a cliff over that time, which is helpful. You know, we talk about this all the time. The danger, in my mind, is the replacement of the news outlets by internet sources. We talk about AI-written articles, AI-generated news videos of news stories that actually just never happened. One of my favorites is my own dear mother. She loves to read the Daily Mail. And she's always bringing up these stories and being like, this never happened. She'll like look into it and like, there's just nothing here. Like, there's no police reports. They're saying there's a story here, and it's just, there's nothing. And this happens all the time. And
that story is specifically designed to gain the most reaction. So it's going to mean something in terms of shifting people's mindsets.
And the type of news stories you get are tailored to you, actually. And this is something to understand. Those aren't news stories that are just published at, you know, large. They're literally targeted news stories written by AI for you, for your typecast, so to speak. And a lot of these you can't even find. Me being very interested in the stars, I always get fed articles. They show up all over about the stars or this thing or that thing. And so, starheads, get ready. There is, you know, Orion, which is a constellation, and it has Betelgeuse in it, which is one of the stars. And there was a huge article that I was basically just dropped on my lap about how Betelgeuse, this was like 4 years ago, by the way, Betelgeuse was going to burn out. So if you wanted to see it, you had to go see it in the next 2 months, meaning like get out there with your telescope and look and take pictures. And all these scientists were going to take pictures of Betelgeuse because it was going to, all the light was going to end in the next 2 months. It's still shining today. I saw it yesterday. It's like, why would that news article show up for me? The reality is it's like they want to instill a sense of panic. And that's just kind of a small anecdote to understand that by and large, people are wising to this sort of thing overall of media being fake. But then they still think, well, the article must have been written by a human.
And it's like you look at, you know, streamer space or content creation space. Like the people that are the most, extreme, lefty tankies, and the people that are on the most, whatever is allowable at the time, like based right people.
I know who you're talking about.
Yes. Literally, they are in the exact same Hollywood talent agency.
Yeah.
And it's just like, yeah, none of this is real. These people are not actual, flesh and blood creatures.
Randy Savage is a real, macho man and all that, right? Like,
nah, that's Macho Man's not real, but Hulk Hogan is real.
Oh, of course, yeah, Hulk Hogan is real. Well, yeah. he had, all of wrestling has to be real. Come on.
Yeah, because I saw Hulk Hogan at one point from really far away, and those
there was a short that was fed to me shortly after we discussed pro wrestling being fake, about a makeup department at, I don't know if it's WWE or FI. Forgive me if I get the deals wrong.
Wait, pro wrestling is fake?
And there was an interview combined with all the different things that Shorts put in there, and it was like, yeah, we faked The Rock. We faked Dwayne The Rock Johnson. We put another guy like in a little crude mask, and then walked him down the thing, and people were like, "It's The Rock," and everyone's cheering, and it's like these are people looking directly at the guy in the mask that looks basically nothing like The Rock except for he's bald, and everyone's just like, "Yeah, he's here," and then he gets up and wrestles, and like people don't find out till like a lot later. And this is that thing where it's like everyone's thinking it's the guy. That must be what the guy. That's the guy it looks like. And the point simply being that it's so easy to fake this, and if they admit to faking that, which just is like the obvious thing in the world, and then they're also
clearly not putting in effort.
Yeah, they're not even putting in effort, and so people will go all the time, "Oh, you couldn't fake people out." It's like, well, there's an example. They faked it, and then they flaunted it in your face that they faked it, and made fun of you that they faked it. But you think that your favorite streamer is like real. I mean, if it's Chad Guy, it's real.
Yeah. If it's me, then it's real.
Yeah.
I'm the only streamer that's real. Everybody else is just fake. But also, I don't really particularly stream on Twitch too much anymore
because Twitch is fake.
Yes, Twitch is fake. And yeah, that's just something that that's also another topic for another day. Is just going in further to the idea of how content creation kind of changes people. And could talk about it a little bit right now. Is just that in the same way that people have the idea of, oh, I'm going to be talking to the person that is not real, not in the room, of the proverbial normie, and I'm going to change my thoughts to that. So many streamers, just as an example, like all of their thoughts are curtailed to the idea of what is probably best for making number go up, and what is going to not get me into trouble, and what is going to be the optimized thing to say, the optimized thing to react in order to gain the most clicks. And so everything is based around this almost sort of like audience capture to where it's a monkey dancing for peanuts, to where, not to name names, I'm just going to name a name. Just perfect example to sort of illustrate this point is the League streamer Nantes. In terms of, he used to be a Giga Chad Sigma NoFap warrior who's super into that. Eventually realized that that's not what the League community wants. The League community does not want people like that. So he becomes yordle fornication obsessed like Coomer character.
Yeah.
Because that's what sells in the League community. And so that's just another example of understanding that the people that you're looking at when you're looking at content creation is that they are molded not only just by their audience, but more and more, the biggest thing is that you are being molded by the algorithm, because subscriber count is not real anymore. That's not something that's actually relevant whatsoever. You look at YouTube, TikTok, X, any of these platforms, and the kind of posts that you can see will be random people who have 300 followers, who just make something that hits the algorithm, and there's no sort of audience loyalty anymore to where you can guarantee that, oh, I've cultivated this particular audience throughout this time frame, so that anytime I post a video, these people are going to see it. No, that's just not how it works, because everybody gets their content through the algorithm feed. So even if somebody in your audience would like to watch the video, if it's not optimized to what the algorithm wants, then they're not even going to see it whatsoever.
Yeah. Just on the point of the streamers, I'm going to counter signal you slightly.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And this is something that we have talked about more off camera with some individuals, is just how you can have levels of takes.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a totally okay thing to have, like the level 1 take on a particular event and the level 2 take and so on.
Mm-hmm.
And so the level 5 take is the one about the streamers catering to the audience,
mm-hmm.
which is a really convenient cope for why all streamers basically move toward the same kind of slop.
Mm-hmm.
And then the level 6 take is actually that's not what the audience wants,
mm-hmm.
but it's what the talent agency wants them to do, mm-hmm. and then pays them and artificially inflates them so there's no other competition. So then the viewer becomes the one who is forced to consume the slop that they don't even want. And then it's a self-feeding cycle at that point.
Yes, 100% agree. It's not even a counter signal. You can't counter signal me by agreeing with me.
I counter signal you by going a level above you.
Okay, yeah. Because it's also...
I'm more schizo than you.
Not only just the talent agencies producing that slop, but let me go one level higher than you.
Okay.
Talent agencies are in cahoots. They're the same people as the algorithm people.
So the algorithm people are the talent agency, which determines the streamers must do the thing to please the algorithm to feed the goy slop consumers at the bottom.
Yes, exactly.
This take is like a level 8 take easily.
Yep. So in that sense, it's really more and more that things go on, the harder and harder it is to find authenticity.
Yes.
So one example of where you can find authenticity is in the sauna. This is something that I said that I was going to have to talk about with somebody noting things on the podcast, is just the type of conversations that we're having right now are something that you can get all the time in the sauna. And the best part is it's not free. It's the cost of a gym membership. But it's something that is readily available that you can just kind of get whenever. As long as, they're not having headphones on, just strike up a conversation. Yeah. And then you can practice all of these skills. You can go to the idea of, first starting to kind of, it's a big thing with people saying they're against small talk, mm-hmm. when small talk is the most important thing, because small talk is about the idea of gauging where the other person is at, so that you can understand, all right, what level are we going to have the conversation on? And it's kind of like a back and forth of like, nice weather we're having. Yeah, those like government planes aren't coming in because of the shutdown, and then, okay, all right, are they at your level or are they not? And then you can start to have the conversation from there. So that's what's important about small talk. And then overall, just in the types of, there's just something about, not being able to bring in your phone because it's really hot, and just being in a isolated, soundproof room because it needs to be, heat controlled sauna, that just allows these types of conversations between guys to just flourish so much better.
Yeah. The most schizo conversations I've had have always been in the sauna. Mm-hmm. One, just anecdotally, I'm in the sauna, and I think it's because the perception is because it comes from like Finland or Scandinavia, and there's a lot of like spiritual kind of alternative health associated with that. The thought is if you're in the sauna, you must already be kind of like alt health sort of. Mm-hmm. And there was a guy about my age, and he just immediately starts talking to me about like mystical breathing techniques.
Yeah.
He looked at me and he was like, we can start this conversation at mystical breathing techniques. And then it's like, well, I can try to go higher or lower, and finding that common ground. And it's like, turns out, okay, this guy is into some weird spiritualism. I can, exist on that kind of level. And he's got some interesting takes that are, I would consider medium level takes on spirituality and understanding like the spiritual realm around us. It's like, This guy talked to me. I didn't even have to bring it up. Took one look and he was just like, this guy's into this spiritual stuff. And so those are the kind of people that are kind of going into the sauna already. The guy I met there was just a Finnish fishing guide. That's fishing guides in Finland. So then he's just like talking about the crazy saunas they have there and then like all these weird things that go on in Finland. So just for me personally, I've experienced this as well. In the sauna, you find people and they're much more willing to talk there than basically anywhere else. Like you go to a bus stop, just don't talk to anyone.
Yeah. People will be just actively hostile to you. Whereas there's almost like a idea of, oh, this is kind of shared suffering that we're going on to.
To
where it's like, oh, we have a limited time that we can be in here.
And there's always an excuse to leave.
That's another thing, is that there's always an excuse to leave so that people don't feel like they're being trapped into the conversation, and people don't feel like they're trapping people in the conversation, so that you just kind of cherish what you have as you have it. And that ultimately, like everything that we're saying in terms of mindsets, beliefs, in terms of, this is also a situation where you can just try a whole bunch of different techniques. So there's one technique of going, a slightly off color remark and then seeing how people react and then engaging from there. And that is, throwing out the breadcrumbs to where, if they pick it up, then, you put another down, but then if they don't, then it's like, all right, no more bread for you. Like, just let it return to the earth. Where there's also another idea, another conception that I utilize, which is saying something that's so absurd and like the full level 10 take, almost in a way to where the person who would be potentially interested would be like, yo, wait, what? Like, yo, tell me more. And then the person who's not interested in it would be like, haha, yeah, good joke. And being able to, I wish I was a funnier guy, because that's just such a valuable space to be in, of existing in the space of people don't know whether or not what you're saying is comedy or what you're saying is serious. And that is another super valuable filtering tool, because even if somebody isn't necessarily on that wavelength, if you say the most extreme idea of what you have, then it will pretty radically filter out people who are not at all at that space. And then also just wild power move that will happen for the people that are there of, oh, this person is not at all a slave to the socio-cultural norms of the time.
I think just one other aspect that kind of ties into our whole point about the phantom person that doesn't exist dominating the conversation by the chance you might offend them is that the saunas that I go to are pretty much always men's saunas, divided men and women's. And in that regard, you do eliminate the possibility of that demographic hearing or entering the conversation. And by and large, men are going to be more open to speaking when they know there's no chance that like a woman is going to walk in while they're saying something. Not that men just habitually say things that are offensive to women. It's more the fact that they're afraid that there might be one of those women. We've talked, I don't remember how much we talked about the Karen mentality, but the obsession around that in the zeitgeist of men is, oh, there's a woman, she might be a Karen. So I'm just not going to say anything. So just the knowledge that that's not a thing probably opens people up a little bit more to say what they're going to say. But as far, I want to clarify the Karen thing. Our position is like Karens are good.
Yes.
And they're just blown way out of proportion. And people love to hate on them for basically no reason at all.
Because they hate society and they hate civilization.
Yeah.
Because Karens are needed to keep civilization in order. I said no pickles on my burger. Well, I wouldn't say no pickles.
I would do that.
I would say no tomatoes on my burger.
Okay.
And they put tomatoes on their burger. So, need to have Karen chimping out. Being like, yo, there's tomatoes on here. What are you doing?
New burger now.
Yep.
Compensate for time lost. Like, these are social norms that were things and that were like people are trying to push away and lose, and then the internet's just like, Karens are mean people. But one of the things about these fake videos, because they're all fake,
Yes.
you have to understand, when someone starts a camera and someone's already really upset, you missed 90% of what happened.
Mhm.
If someone's already just like super, super angry about something, you did miss 90% of the event.
Yes.
Because 90% happens before someone gets to the point where they're yelling or screaming.
Yeah, because 9 times out of 10, there's going to be a justified reason of that person being in a situation of where they were seriously wronged, and there's probably a reason for their anger, which is always why you look at, just going into a generalized point, is why does somebody believe the things that they do, and why is somebody acting in the way that they do? Because there's always a reason, always a justification behind it. If you ever take it to the idea of tying it back into the idea of negative thoughts, poisonous thoughts, is the idea of this one phrase: never attribute to malice what can equally be attributed to stupidity. That phrase originates from a joke book. You would never see that in the Bible. Like,
it's not philosophy. Not even Aesop's fables would dare.
Like, no serious philosopher took it, but we've just kind of taken that as received wisdom. And the only purpose of that actually does in practice is allows malicious actors to hide their maliciousness through the idea of stupidity. Like, people will look at government and, they're just incompetent. Like, they just don't know what they're doing. When you're incompetent, you will sometimes accidentally do something that is good.
Yeah.
When the decisions always end up being negative, then that is a specific intent behind that. When the decisions are consistent, whereas incompetence is variable. So when somebody's behavior is always a particular way, that is something that has intentionality behind it. People have ideas and understandings that are justified. Everybody is justified in the beliefs of what they're thinking. When you really just talk to people more, you'll understand this more. Of the person who's super blue-haired, bull ring piercing Portlanderite, and they're just like, I want to just, have every man have a creeper run up to them in Minecraft or something.
Yeah.
If you just ask them, what has their relationship been like with men in their lives, it's perfectly understanding why they would have a particular view of men when every man in their life has acted a particular way. And it's really just about trying to just understand where people are at. And it's something that it just comes from just trying to sort of be humble and just trying to be sort of out of it, which just goes into, what are you trying to get out of any particular interaction? When somebody is talking about crystals and they're talking about mystical breathing techniques in the sauna, and they're talking about what you would call medium level spirituality, there's 2 ways that you could go about it. Is saying, everything you say is wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong. This is wrong. In a way of just trying to prove your idea right. Or you could just say, this guy's an interesting idea, so I'm just going to sparse out and try to just understand what this person's perspective is. Because even if you 100% agree with their perspective, it can still be valuable to understand it.
Yeah, I agree with that. A lot of times, what can be more useful than the information that someone's bringing, if it's medium level information or something that maybe you've heard before, is trying to understand how they got to that conclusion, what in their life has driven them there, because it gives you an insight into the mind a little bit more. And if your goal is get in reps for small talk, then this is perfect. If your goal is, I want to help people in the long run come out of the darkness, this is also great, because now you're understanding more of those things. Whereas if your goal is, don't talk to people, then don't go in the sauna.
Yes. And with that being said, all of these things are about trying to find what is true and what is pure, and having the good things in life, and finding out the mindsets that are good, and then getting rid of the mindsets that are negative, and always trying to just find out what's been real. And you know what's been real? It's been real.
It's been real.